Galactic database categorizes Earth as, don't even think about it. Galactic Standard Year 4528, Restricted Space Alert. That can't be right. Zilva stared at the pulsing red alert on his console. His mandibles clicked nervously as the words flashed across his screen. Police car light warning, do not engage. System Sol 3. Status, classified. Police car light. He double-checked the galactic database expecting an error. Planets rarely had such extreme classifications. Even death worlds, hostile environments teeming with apex predators, only carried a level 9 hazard rating. But Sol 3? The entry had no hazard level. No diplomatic status. No known alliances. Just a single, ominous category. Red circle, don't even think about it. Red circle. Zilva's thorax tightened. He was a reconnaissance officer for the Dominion fleet, one of the most powerful military forces in the known galaxy. Yet, his every instinct screamed at him to turn his ship around. Unfortunately, it was already too late. A distress beacon flickered at the edge of Sol's heliosphere, an automated SOS repeating in 8 different languages. His orders were clear: investigate all distress signals. Send a drone, his second-in-command Yeltra suggested. We don't have time, Zilva muttered, already adjusting their course. That was his first mistake. The Ghost of Orion, 5. As the Dominion ship, Vecron, entered the Sol system, a wave of unease settled over the crew. The system was oddly quiet. No patrols. No orbital defenses. Nothing but the occasional flicker of satellites drifting in the void. Yet the moment they passed Mars, the ship's AI, Overseer 99, chimed in. Warning: unauthorized entry detected. Proceed with caution. Warning. Proceed with caution? Yeltra scoffed. There's nothing here. Then the distress beacon stopped. Zilva's mandibles clicked. That's impossible. Signals didn't just vanish. The last time he'd seen something like this was during the Orion 5 incident, when an entire Dominion battle group disappeared investigating a seemingly harmless planet. Their final transmission? They're watching. No one ever found out who they were. Zilva pushed the thought aside. Humans were primitive. A pre-hyperdrive species. If anything, they were probably wiped out long ago. That was his second mistake. The signal that wasn't there. We're approaching Earth, Yeltra said, glancing at the viewport. Zilva studied the blue-green planet below. Looked alive. Oceans churned, storm systems raged, and vast cityscapes glittered beneath a thin veil of atmosphere. Except, there's no transmissions, Zilva realized. No communications. No network signatures. A type, one civilization should have been flooding subspace with signals. Instead, Earth was silent. Then something changed. The ship's sensors glitched. Coordinates shifted. Star positions realigned. It was as if the entire galaxy had subtly moved. What the hell was that? Yeltra hissed. Zilva's claws trembled over the console. I don't know. And that was when the planet answered. First contact, or so they thought. A single transmission cut through their ship's systems. Not subspace. Not electromagnetic waves. Something deeper. Green circle incoming transmission. Unknown source. A voice, calm, neutral, yet undeniably artificial, spoke in perfect Dominion standard. We see you. Every screen on the Vecron flashed white. The ship trembled as reality itself seemed to ripple. Then the alarm started. Police car light, unauthorized intrusion detected. Core systems locked. Police car light. The crew scrambled, but nothing responded. Weapons, engines, shields, everything was disabled. Yeltra's mandibles spread in horror. Who the hell? Then the main screen displayed something new. A face. It was vaguely human but wrong. Eyes too deep. Expression too neutral. Like it was studying them as data, not life. Galactic entity identified. Dominion vessel Vecron. Status, military. The crew barely had time to react before the ship's AI shut itself down. And the human construct spoke again. Leave. A warning no one would believe. Zilva slammed the emergency override, forcing the ship's engines into a hard reverse burn. The instant they crossed the moon's orbit, everything reactivated. Systems restored. Shields back online. The Dominion ship AI, previously silent, sputtered back to life. Green circle systems normal. No threats detected. Zilva stared at the screen, his breathing ragged. No threats detected? That thing took control of an entire Dominion warship. It wasn't a civilization. It wasn't a military. It was something else. something that had decided Earth was not to be touched. And as the Vecron fled the Sol system, Zilva made his final mistake. He looked back, and for just a second, less than a blink, he swore he saw something. Not a fleet, not weapons, something watching, waiting, knowing. The moment passed and Earth's moon seemed normal again. But the fear in Zilva's chest didn't fade. As they reached the edge of the system, a final message appeared on their ship's console. No transmission. No source. Just 5 words. Red circle, don't even think about it. Red circle. And Zilva knew. This wasn't a warning. It was a fact. A silence that wasn't empty. Zilva's claws trembled over the console. The Vecron had left Sol's outer perimeter, but the feeling of being watched hadn't faded. Yeltra's voice was barely a whisper. What the hell just happened? The crew around them had the same vacant horror on their faces. They had survived planetary-grade system intrusion. Their ship's core AI, one of the Dominion's most advanced constructs, had been taken offline like a child's toy. And yet, the database never classified Earth as a death world. Zilva's mandibles clicked rapidly. Because it wasn't a death world. It was worse. The Phantom Pursuer. Long-range scanners, check them again, Zilva ordered. Yeltra hesitated before tapping the controls. There's nothing following us. But the moment she said it, the instruments flickered. For less than a second, the sensors displayed a shadow. Something moving just beyond detection range. Then it was gone. Zilva's mind reeled. No Dominion technology, no known technology, could evade detection like that. Yeltra's voice was tight. It's not following us. It's just making sure we leave, Zilva finished grimly. And that terrified him more than anything. Because it meant whatever was on Earth didn't fear them. It didn't need to chase them down. It just watched because it knew no one would dare come back. The Council's laughingstock. 3 rotations later, the Vecron docked at Dominion High Command. Zilva barely had time to step off the landing deck before a swarm of intelligence officers surrounded him. You entered a classified system, the lead officer barked. Explain yourself. Zilva stood his ground. We detected a distress beacon. Standard protocol dictated investigation. And? Zilva hesitated. He wanted to say everything. About the instant system lockdown. The entity that spoke to them. The phantom presence following their ship. But the moment he saw their faces, he knew they wouldn't believe him. One of the officers sneered. You're saying a pre-FTL species hacked a Dominion warship? Laughter rippled through the group. Zilva clenched his fists. I'm saying we shouldn't go back. You sound like the Orion 5 lunatics. The officer rolled his eyes. Another ghost planet myth. Zilva exhaled slowly. Check the Galactic database. You know what Earth's classification is. The officer smirked. Don't even think about it. Another round of chuckles. You ever wonder why it says that? Zilva challenged. The officer's smirk faded slightly. We'll review your report, he said, waving him off. Dismissed. The truth no one wanted to hear. Zilva didn't return to his quarters. He went deeper into High Command's intelligence archives. If Dominion officials refused to take him seriously, he'd find whoever wrote that classification. He scoured records for hours, tracing back centuries of restricted logs. Every entry regarding Earth ended in redactions. Entire reports wiped. Investigations marked as unsubstantiated. But then he found one. An ancient report, over 600 cycles old. Title, Sol 3 Anomaly Incident. Status, Restricted, Eyes Only. He bypassed security protocols and opened it. The first sentence sent ice through his veins. Do not engage. Do not interfere. Do not alert them. Zilva read further, his mandibles clicking with dread. A fleet, a real fleet, not a lone scout ship, had once investigated Earth. Back when the Dominion was still expanding. They sent 30 warships. Only one returned. The captain's final testimony was barely coherent. We saw them. They let us go. We will never understand. The log ended abruptly. No further records. No explanations. Just a final classification update. Red circle, don't even think about it. Red circle. They knew he was looking. Zilva's vision swam. His breathing was shallow. Something was wrong. His console screen flickered. His personal comms device shut down. The archive room's lights dimmed without command. Then, a message. On a private, closed system that wasn't even connected to the Galactic network. Just 4 words. You shouldn't be here. Zilva's heart stopped. He wasn't alone in this room. Someone, was watching. The Dominion intelligence archives were considered unbreachable. But if they could disable an entire warship, why wouldn't they be able to access this? Cold terror gripped him. He shut off the console, backing away slowly. The moment he left the archive chamber, the lights returned to normal. It was a message. A warning. And Zilva finally understood. They hadn't let the Vecron escape. They had allowed it. Because they already knew everything. And the moment the Dominion tried to come back, it wouldn't be a warning next time. It would be war. A decision that should never have been made. High Command didn't listen. They reviewed Zilva's report. They laughed at the classified records. They dismissed the warnings as the ramblings of an outdated expedition. And then, they made the worst decision in Dominion history. A full Dominion battle fleet was ordered to Sol. Not a scouting party. Not a diplomatic envoy. An armada. 300 warships. Their goal? Force Earth to explain itself. Zilva stood in the command chamber as the High Council finalized the deployment order. He wanted to scream. To physically stop them. Instead, all he could do was whisper. You don't understand. They let us go. The Supreme Strategist sneered. And now we will remind them why the Dominion reigns supreme. The order was signed. The fleet launched. And Sol watched them come. Welcome back to hell. As the Dominion fleet pierced the heliosphere, Sol burned before them. A bright, yellow inferno casting long, golden streaks across their hulls. Hundreds of warships moved as one, their formations precise, weapons locked, shields at full power. The lead ship, Indomitable Wrath, sent the first transmission. Sol system, you will respond. Static. We are the Dominion. You will answer. More silence. Then, something flickered. A ping. Small. Faint. Like a sonar pulse, except there was nothing there. A bridge officer frowned. Proximity scan detected. Something. But there's no mass, no energy readings. The Supreme Strategist scowled. A cloaking field? The officer shook their head. No, it's like, they hesitated. Like it's watching. The first strike. The Supreme Strategist growled. Enough games. He raised his claw. Fire on the third planet. Across the fleet, dozens of superweapons charged. Planetary-class mass drivers, ion bombardment cannons, star-piercing lances, each capable of reducing continents to molten ruin. They took aim. A heartbeat passed. Then, everything stopped. Not just the weapons, the ships, the crew, the air, the light. This is your first and final warning. Zilva felt it before he saw it. Something bigger than reality. An immensity that pressed against his mind, not with force, but with the sheer weight of its existence. Then the screens flickered. A transmission, no. A message. Not from a ship. Not from a planet. From Sol itself. The black void of space twisted, bent around something unfathomable. And then words appeared across every single Dominion vessel. You were warned. The silence wasn't empty. It was waiting. Then something moved. Not ships. Not weapons. Concepts. Ideas that became form. A war fleet that hadn't existed a second ago, but had always been there. The war that never happened. The Dominion's 300 warships, the full might of their empire, stood motionless. Frozen mid-command. Time itself felt, paused, held. Then a presence uncoiled. It wasn't hostile. It wasn't aggressive. It was disappointed. It spoke in no words, no sound, but the meaning sank into their minds. You made a choice. A mistake. The Dominion never fired. Because the moment they had decided to, the war was already over. The moment they entered Sol, they had lost. One by one, the Dominion ships vanished. Not destroyed. Not consumed. Just gone. As if they had never existed. Zilva stood on the bridge of his own vessel, watching the stars return to their natural shape. The Supreme Strategist? Erased. The war fleet? Erased. Zilva? Spare. What? The answer came as a whisper that wasn't a whisper. Because you understood. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, Sol was empty again. As if nothing had happened. As if there had never been a war fleet at all. One last warning. Zilva's ship was alone. Back at high command, the entire fleet roster was blank. Records showed no mission to Sol. No Supreme Strategist. No Indomitable Wrath. It was as if the fleet had never been formed. But Zilva remembered. And when he checked the Galactic database, the classification had changed. No longer just don't even think about it. Now it read. Red circle. if you enter, you will not return. Red circle. And below that, in text that wasn't written by the Dominion, this is your final warning. Zilva exhaled. He didn't need another. No one would. The aftermath of the war that never happened. Zilva sat in his private quarters aboard his ship, staring blankly at the screen before him. The galactic database flickered in eerie silence, the warning freshly burned into the record. Red circle. If you enter, you will not return. Red circle. He had lived it. He had seen 300 Dominion warships wiped from existence, their leaders erased as if they had never been born. Yet there were no records of them now. No evidence. No traces. The Dominion High Command did not remember. To them, the Supreme Strategist had never existed. The indomitable Wrath had never been commissioned. The Armada had never launched. To them, he was simply an outdated relic drifting in space with a mission that never was. But he remembered. He remembered everything. A fractured mind. His claws trembled over the command console. Had he gone mad? He checked the logs of his own ship. The date was correct. The records showed nothing. His own ship had no memory of where it had been. No flight path. No transit logs. He checked the external sensors. No Dominion beacons, no signs of the Armada's wreckage. Because there were no wrecks. There had never been a battle. There had never been anything at all. The Dominion had attempted war with Earth. Earth had simply declined. And the Dominion had lost. No, not lost. They had been removed. Zilva clenched his jaw, forcing himself to breathe. There was only one thing he could do now. He had to warn the rest of the galaxy. The Senate of Stars. The Galactic Senate convened at the heart of the Dominion's territory, an ancient council where the greatest species of the known universe met. It was here that wars were declared. It was here that treaties were signed. And it was here that Zilva stood alone. The chamber was vast, a swirling cathedral of light, filled with the holograms of 100 species. As he stepped forward to speak, the murmurs of the gathered diplomats barely concealed their contempt. A Dominion war veteran? Speaking alone? Zilva's voice was steel. I bring news of Earth. Silence. Then laughter. A Kthari senator sneered. You return from your self-imposed exile with ghost stories? A Zendari diplomat waved dismissively. The Dominion's obsession with Sol is a waste of time. Humanity has never posed a serious threat. Zilva slammed his fist against the podium. The force of it sent a crack through the polished stone. A hush fell over the chamber. They erased a Dominion armada. His voice was ice. 300 warships. Gone. No wreckage. No records. As if they had never existed. Silence. Uneasy glances. A whispered murmur spread like wildfire. Zilva took a deep breath and leaned forward. You do not understand. It is not that we lost. His claws tightened. It is that they never had to fight us at all. The Senate chamber fell into stunned silence. For the first time in millennia, the Dominion had encountered something it could not quantify. A power beyond war. Beyond fleets. Beyond existence itself. The High Council's Supreme Speaker, an elder of untold years, gazed at Zilva with rare contemplation. He tapped his long fingers against his throne. Then he spoke. And you believe this? Sol is a threat. Zilva exhaled. He shook his head. No. The room tensed. They are a warning. The true nature of Sol. The Senate erupted into heated debate. Some refused to believe him. Others demanded an investigation. And some, those with enough intelligence to recognize true danger, said nothing at all. But deep in the archives of the Galactic database, a hidden record updated itself. It was not written by any known intelligence. No administrator had altered it. And yet, there it was. Red circle, final classification, unfathomable. Red circle. A moment later, a final line appeared. One last message. It had no author. No timestamp. No source. And yet it was there waiting for all who dared to look. We are watching. Epilogue. The whisper in the void. Light years away in the uncharted depths of space, something shifted. Not a ship. Not a being. A presence. It had no name. No form. It simply was. And for the first time in centuries, it turned its attention toward the Dominion.